creating a scene in Cartoon Animator 4 from A to Z. And today we're going to be talking about character creation and customization. I'm not going to spend too much time on the details of this. There's a lot of tutorials out there that I can refer you to that go into a lot more detail. What I'm going to be doing in this webinar today is going to kind of give you an overview of the basic process for customizing your characters. If you want the entire full process for a full character from A to Z, I can happily provide some tutorials for you. You can find those in our Learning Center as well. What I want to focus on today is mostly kind of just deconstructing the character structure and how you can replace character parts and customize them using Photoshop. And if you don't have the pipeline version of Cartoon Animator, if you only have the Pro version, you can do this as well, but you do it in a different way. And I'll show you both ways as we move along here. Okay, so like I mentioned, character customization and creation can be a bit of a monotonous type of a task. So I want to spend a bit of time on that. I don't want to just go over and over and over the same process again. So we're going to spend a little bit of time at the end here doing some dynamic animation, which, if you can remember, is the karate kick from the previous webinar. I showed you the video there, and I'll show you that again in just a moment, just so we can review what we're going to be going over here in day 2. Okay, so aside from that, as always, we're streaming this live on YouTube. So if you want to watch on YouTube, feel free to check it out on YouTube as well. We are recording this as well. So if you have questions, or if I go too fast for anything, you can always review that later on your own time. In addition to that, let's see here. Yes, we are going to have a Q&A session at the very end. So if you have any questions, I can answer those live on the air here as we move along. And for those of you who missed day 1, on day 1, we basically just covered, creation, background creation, prop customization, a few other things. You can find it in the archive if you want. If you go to your reallusion.com webinars here in the archive, you'll find it right here. I'm gonna paste this link in the chat window of our Zoom panel there. Okay, and so if you missed day 1, you can watch it. You can watch now the video right here. Okay, and then day 2 here, of course, is the upcoming webinars, and day 2, and then finally day 3 next Monday. We're going to be covering scene rendering, some facial animation, character interaction, a lot of the facial motion capture. You're going to see my ugly mug on the webcam, and also some basic camera movement, and finally rendering. So today is going to focus mostly on character creation, customization, and some very basic and very interesting body animation. So let's go ahead and play the video one more time here, just so we can review and we can see what we're going to be covering here.
Jim, you really should take a break from animating. You've been at it for hours.
Hey, Bob. Thanks. Will do.
Well, hello there, Jim.
Hey, After Effects. That's funny. I don't remember buying a dancing monitor. Man, what was in that coffee?
Let go of her, you snake.
Ooh, help me, Jim.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
We'll see about that.
Oh, Jim, you saved me. Jim.
All right, enough of that nonsense. So we are going to be recreating that kind of super slow-mo kick at the very end here. I'm going to be showing you essentially how to create a couple of free bone actors. Now, the first free bone actor is going to kind of surprise you as to what exactly it is. And if you've already taken a look through the project files, you may know the free bone actor is actually not going to be an actor at all. It's going to be an arm, all right, a disembodied arm. And I'll show you how to create that. That's the first thing we're going to cover. And we're also going to create that After Effects free bone actor. So we're going to create 2 sort of free bone actors that you use in different scenarios. And the second one's going to be the After Effects with the face and everything. And then finally, the third one, I'm going to show you how to kind of just replace, customize your own character piece by piece. And that's going to be using that Gary Pie character that I mentioned in the previous webinar and previous day last week. Okay, I want to also remind you that we do have our weekly special on for this football moves content pack. So if you're into football, I just watched a game over the weekend here in Vancouver. I'd recommend checking this out for all your 2D character football needs. So I'll just go ahead and paste this in the chat window. And this is going to be the last take a look we take at the content store probably. All right, and I also wanted to put this webinar here as well. This is a webinar, I want to share this link. This is a webinar that focuses exclusively, we just did this a couple months ago in May. This is a webinar that focuses exclusively on facial motion capture and 360 head creation, okay? So if you want more details on that, I'm going to cover it a little bit in this webinar, but not too much. I'm going to put this in the chat window as well, okay? So I'm going to go just throw this in the chat window. Highly recommend checking this one out. And this will be really useful. Whoops. I need to put it into all the chat members and attendees here. Okay, there you go. Now you should all see it. Okay, and I'll put that link from the content store in there as well. Gosh, there we go. I was only sharing it with the panelists before, but let's go ahead and make sure everyone can see it here. There we go. Okay, and after that, let's get into the good stuff here. So what we're going to start with is some character freebone actor creation. Okay, so if you recall, in a certain part of the scene, the one character is kind of holding the other character. Let's go ahead and it's in part 2 here. I'm just going to go ahead and right here. Okay, so you see, this is a problem that people I always get emails about this, like, oh, you know, like, how do I get this person, you know, like hugging somebody, or like, you know, how do I get this person holding something with arms on both sides? Because as you may know, in Cartoon Animator, it's all 2D, right? So if you put a prop or an object in front of the character, it's hard to have their other arm in front of the object or character to make it look like they're carrying it from both sides. Okay, now there's obviously really ways you can get around this, but I'm going to show you a very useful way to make it so that the character's arm can be in front of another character. If they're hugging, in this case, she's a hostage. They're not really hugging at all. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at how you can have that hand in front of the other one. Okay, and I'm going to use a freebone actor for this. Now, I'm using these characters from the campus pack. Now, a lot of you may not have this pack. Okay, and if you want to, you can. I can send you a link later for this content pack. This is just a new pack that we have. I'm just going to go ahead and use these characters because they're the ones I've used in the project here. So we have our female character, Eva, all right? And we're going to use this jock character. I'm not sure a jock, he's a bad boy. He has a leather jacket anyways. We'll bring him into the scene here as well, Leon S. These are from the campus, what's it called? Campus something pack. Campus Hero Pack. There you go. Okay. So here's the initial problem. When we have our characters, you know, they look like a happy couple. They both seem pretty aggressive though with their facial expressions. The problem we have is we want to put you know, his arm in front of her. Okay, we'll just say, you know, they're hugging her, you know, whatever. If we want to put his arm in front of her, we face a problem, right? So we can use the 2D motion key editor. We can take his left hand. Okay, we can bring it up like this, but it's going to go behind her. Okay. So we want to have it like, we want to have it look like he's kind of like, I guess, grasping her throat or whatever you would do in this kind of hostage situation. Okay. And, you know, if you bring him in the front, it'll be like this. Okay. And then his right arm is in front of her, which looks kind of stupid. All right. So we're going to bring him to the back here. And there's something that we really need to do here. And that is to create a freebone actor of our character's arm. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my character, the dude here, we're going to launch it into Photoshop. So we first need to take it into composer mode. And essentially, we're going to create a freebone actor made of his arm. All right, so all we need to do is just launch into Photoshop. Okay, and this is, unfortunately, you do have to have the pipeline version to do this. Okay, just so you're aware. Let's have the head and body in 2 separate files since we don't really need the head, but there's no choice to launch the body by itself. So we'll go ahead and launch them in 2 separate files here. And essentially what I'm going to be doing is saving this arm out as a separate PNG. Really, it's quite a simple process. But again, I get tons of people asking, oh gosh, Creative Cloud always asking me to log in and asking me how to do that. And you can use the same process for grasping items or whatnot. Okay. Okay, so we don't need the face right now. Let's focus on the body. And let's take all those bones away. Let's go down to the images here. The only image we need is our character's left arm. Okay, so let's just make everything else invisible here. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. And now we have this left arm. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, and let's select it here. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim this. Go to image and trim. And this should work. It should allow us to trim out all the transparent pixels in our scene. Okay, we'll trim all the angles away, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So now we have an arm, all right, a disembodied arm on our character. And all I'm going to do is save this out. Now, I forgot to mention here as well that with the hand, we can use a different sprite for the hand. Okay, so you can see right now it's just a relaxed hand. And, you know, maybe he's not so relaxed if he's like grasping her throat. So we could use like an okay or, you know, this one here. There's all sorts of different hand sprites you can use just like this. Okay. This reach one might be good. There's an open one. Okay. This one here. Again, it's all really up to you to decide what kind of hand you want to use. I'm just going to go ahead and use the relaxed one since, you know, it'll look okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and use this for now. And I'm just going to save this out simply as a PNG. So we'll go to File and Save As. And we want to save it as a PNG like this. Let's just save it to our project folder here, my super secret project folder. And I think it's in Images. We'll just call this hand/arm. Hand arm. Okay, and save that as a PNG. Okay, good stuff. Okay, and we'll leave Photoshop open for later use. We'll just take this out. Now, the tricky thing we need to do here is we need to pose our arm in the exact same position as his arm is right here. Now, I'm going to give him a bit of a different pose here. Let's go to our animation tab here, and let's go to this, use this fight pose here. This is under, you should have this embedded in Cartoon Animator. So under motion here, under G3 human, under Turner's Mail, and under side facing motions, you should have this pose fight. Okay, there you go. All right. So now it kind of looks like he's, you know, a bit more ready to, you know, take on the world, or at least he's a bit more intense when he's holding this hostage. Okay, and we'll just take our character's arm up a little bit. Again, using the 2D motion key editor, and just bring it up to where her face might be there. Okay, just something like that. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to bring in that image of the hand. Okay, so let's go ahead to our folder here. I saved it under images here, and hand arm. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag this in to our scene just like this. And now if we import it as a prop, we wouldn't have a bone structure. Okay. And this is why I'm importing it as a G3 free bone actor. Even though it's not an actor, it'll look like this. Okay, it'll pop up right away into composer mode. Okay, so we're no longer in stage mode, we're into composer mode. All you gotta do is add a couple bones, right? So let's add bone, click here in the middle of the shoulder, circle area there, and right in the middle of the elbow, and then maybe on the wrist. Generally, it's recommended to have your bones end on you know, various parts. Well, joints on your character, like the wrist and the elbows and the shoulder. Okay. All right. So boom, we've created a free bone actor. It doesn't have a head or anything. We don't need a head. So let's just go ahead and take this back to stage mode here. Okay. So it imported in a little bit larger than we want. Okay. No worries. All we need to do is resize it. Whoops. There we go. Resize it just like this. And let's place it approximately where our character's arm is, like this. And zoop, there we go. And then we can take the, go to the motion key editor here And all we need to do now is take that hand and zoom. So now you can see we have basically an arm, like a separate arm, right? We can throw it like this, all right, have it in front of the character's face. Now, again, the key here is getting it ideally the same position as the original arm. Okay, something like this. And it may take a little bit of resizing, a little bit of positioning, but this is the best way. Looks like he's covering her eyes right now. Don't look, darling. Okay, then we need to just take everything back here and there you go. All right, that should be about right. All right, you don't need to worry too much. And again, it's a lot easier if you just have the hand on the character. One thing you can do is you can make it invisible, or just delete the sprite temporarily. So if you want, you can go ahead and select the character, go to the sprite editor, and select like his left arm, and just empty it like that. Oops, we chose the wrong one. We'd have to make the hand arm invisible for now. Don't show it. Okay, and sprite editor. We can make the hand arm or the arm on our character invisible by going like this and selecting this one and selecting empty. Again, this is done with the sprite editor. Okay, and there's a little hand over here. You can kind of barely see it. And we just make that invisible as well. Now, the danger here is when you finish, when you finish the animation, I think it's just popped up in front of him for some reason there. When you finish your animation, like when our character gets kicked in the face, we need to restore those immediately, okay? And I'll show you that when we come across that situation. Okay, so let's show our hand arm again. And there you go, okay? Now, it looks fine, and we could, we don't have to worry about the hand in the background, okay? And there you go, he's just kind of holding her like this. And then we can take his finger and kind of point it. By using the sprite editor again over here on the left. You can also use the S hotkey for the sprite editor, which I often use. I'm trying not to use hotkeys too much, because it's going a little bit too fast for some people. Okay, but you give them one. There's a sprite facing the other direction. There you go. So he's like, I'm going to get you, Kappa. And there you go. Okay, so that's the one major use for the freebone actor creation. You can create a character's limb like this, and you can also add things to the sprite. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here as well, because often get asked by people, how do you get someone holding something, like holding a cup or something like that in their hand? Well, the way you do that is if you go to our images here, what you want to do is we're going to analyze our character, okay? So the spy character, again, this is from our developer, Gary Pye here. The spy character has a number of different PNGs. If you go right here, you can see there's a gun. There's a separate gun sprite, and there's a gun too. This one is holding the actual weapon, okay? So this is the gun by itself, and this is the gun holding the weapon. So what you need to do is you need to actually have these images in your sprite library. Now, the way you would do that is I can go ahead and with this character selected, go into my sprite editor here and select the hand here. And what you need to do, you need to go to composer mode and add that sprite. So I'm just gonna add that sprite just so I can show you. For example, if he was holding a gun here, let's go into composer mode really quick. And we'll have him holding a gun with this hand. All right, so select that hand right there and go over here to the sprite editor. And we'll go ahead and add in another sprite, okay? So you can see there's an empty one here. We can just go ahead and select plus here, which will allow us to add a new sprite. And I'm gonna find that in the library here. My super secret folder here again. Characters, spy, and there we go. And here's our gun, hand holding gun. And again, so what you wanna do here is you wanna resize it and reposition it in the correct position, okay? Now, again, the skin color is gonna be a little bit off, and of course you can fix that in Photoshop if you want, but let's just pretend this guy has some really large cartoon-like hand, all right? And it's slightly discolored. If you want to, you can modify that in Photoshop, but that's not kind of the point here. Okay, it looks not bad, and we can work with that. So let's go ahead back into stage mode here. And all we would want to do is replace that hand sprite with the gun holding hand sprite. Okay, so now it'll appear in our sprite library at the very bottom. Okay, you can see gun 2. Boom, there we go. Right, now he's holding the gun. Okay, so I just kind of showed you a couple things here. The first is like how to use the free bone actor to have a character kind of hold another character, and how to use a sprite replacement, and again to make it appear as though a character is grasping something. And there's a little bit of trickery that's involved when you need to release that gun, and I can show you that maybe in another situation. But here's where you have a couple things where you have a character holding an item and holding another person. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you, and that's the part, of course, where the character is holding the female character, and that's the procedure that you go through. The next thing I want to cover here is how to create that After Effects character that kind of went like, hello, Jim, just walking along, scooting along the ground there, I guess. Okay, now there's a very good tutorial on how to create free bone actors. I can probably find it here on YouTube. It's pretty, I think, cartoon, animator, and effectors. I won't talk much about end effectors, but if you want to learn more about them, hey everybody, in this tutorial, checking this tutorial out. So this will be a good one to follow to create your own free bone actors and use end effectors, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I'll throw this in the chat window here for you guys. Okay. Zoop. There you go. Highly recommend checking this one out. That's probably a good one to learn for free bone actors, since I do the entire process from A to Z. I'm using that trope a little too much here. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to show you how to create that After Effects character. We can keep these two on the screen. They look kind of dynamic. Maybe give her a different pose. Animation. Let's go Turner's female. Just give her a standing pose. There you go. She's looking sexy in her hostage situation. All right. Okay. So I'm going to bring in that image I mentioned for of the Adobe After Effects logo there. Okay. So let's find that folder again. And it is in images, I believe. There you go. After Effects logo. Okay. So again, all I'm going to do is left click and drag this in from Explorer. This is the easiest way to create free bone actors. So let's just go ahead and do that. Create free bone actor. You can see it's a bit big, no worries, but it takes us directly into composer mode again. And this time we're going to add a bit more of a complicated bone structure. It's not really that complicated. Even the chicken tutorial one that I did is even simpler than this, or even more complicated than this. But all you have to do is add bones. Okay. So, and the reason we're adding more bones here is because we want to add an actual head to this character. Okay. So I'm going to add bone. It's generally a good idea to start in the middle of your texture or your image, whatever it is, to start your bone structure, because that's generally where the hips are going to be. Okay. Now some characters will be a bit unconventional. They won't have real hips. Okay, so just left click, add bone, left click, and we'll just go like this. Really simple. Okay. Take this one to the corner. There you go. And then right click when you want to stop adding bones in that direction. Okay. And then I'm going to add bones in the other direction. And I'm going to make sure I have the cursor over top of that nub for the first bone that I started. Okay. And it'll go to the other end here. Again, just left clicking and adding a couple of legs. Okay. And then when you want to stop adding bones, just right click. Okay. And then we're going to add a couple bones up here. This is just for the head. So add bones. You can think of it as an After Effects starfish almost. Okay. And just select here and then select here. Now, very important is where you want to make your head, where you want to put your head bone. Okay. Now your head bone is going to control, it's going to basically move along, move all of the facial sprites on your character's face. And what I mean by that is when I move my head bone, all the facial sprites will move along with it. And that's very important to know in the future. So look at our content manager here under the head tab. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a special cartoon head. Let's go over here to heads. And I have this 360 character vector buddies. Again, this is a separate content pack from the content store. If you want, you can use stuff like the regular G3 heads. Okay, same process applies. The G3 360 heads, these all come embedded with Cartoon Animator. So I'm just going to go ahead and use these vector heads here because I found that this kind of style really works well with what I want to do here. All right, I found this kind of Jesse guy was kind of interesting. He just kind of looks like that. Ooh, hello, ooh, hey Jim, kind of guy. So I used his head anyways. Okay, so once you're in the head tab under G3 360 vector, whatever, I'll go ahead and left click that and make sure that we left click and drag it onto the bone that we want our head to be kind of defined as. Okay, so when we left click and drag this onto our bone here, you can see it highlight in green. We are defining this now as the head of our bone structure. Now, free bone, it's free. You know, there's anything can be the head, so I can make the head down here if I want. Okay, but I'm just going to left click and drag it to here because this seems like an appropriate place to place a head. Okay, and what's going to happen is our character is going to have all this stuff, right? The skin and the ears and the hair and everything like that. Now I'm just resizing it here. I don't want that to be very large, or I don't want to have all those different layers. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go over here to the layer manager, and we're going to get rid of a lot of these things. Okay, if we make it invisible, you'll see what it'll do. Okay, like for example, the face. The face is nothing but the template for the head to, you know, for all the facial features to be placed on top of, basically. So all I really need to do is just select all these that I don't want, and I can just delete them, okay? In the layer manager. This back here, just delete it. We don't need that. And this back here, just press delete and delete that. Okay, and you can select them from here as well, like left ear. We don't need an ear. We'll just delete that. We're literally only going to keep his mouth, the eyes, and the eyebrows. Okay, so we'll take that right ear out. And the face out. Oops, not the face. Nope. There we go. The front hair, that one I'm not sure. Oh, that's not showing up. Okay, there you go. And all the other stuff we're going to keep. Now, we do want to make the face invisible, okay? And that's fine. Now we have our character with the eyes and everything like that, just like this. And for the face, we actually need to make the face sprite invisible. So we can't delete it from the layer manager because it's connected with the talking head there. So we actually need to just go into our sprite layer or sprite editor and make the face invisible here as well. It's kind of just a little workaround there. Okay, empty. And since it's not visible anyways, okay, there you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that down. And I'm going to bring my character's face over here. We can maybe make those eyes a little bit larger as well. If you want to resize them all together, you can just go ahead and click like that. Make sure that your lock-on-lock ratio is enabled there. It's red. You can just change to maybe like 135. Oops. And let's do the other eye as well. It's not selecting the eye there. Right eye. And again, just enter that value, 135. And then just make sure you place it wherever you want it to be placed. And you're good to go. And there's the eyebrows, right brow, like this. And left brow, just like that. Now, keep in mind that these will actually move according to in relation to where the head bone is there, okay? And the mouth. Let's change that to 135 as well for both. Okay, cool. So we have our free bone actor, and it has a head, all right? Now, the cool thing about having a head, you know, working sprites on the character is that this can actually now have expressions and then do talking and stuff like that, like any other character with a face would be doing. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and here we are now in composer mode, or rather in back in stage mode here. And I can take this character And now I can use something like, for example, the face puppet. Okay, so we'll take face puppet and just preview it. Whoops, really quick here. You can see, there we go. We have this guy just moving along like this. And good, he has a nice face and he can make expressions and stuff. All right, so there you go. If you want to move this character along, what you can do is you can maybe we can flip it back and forth like this. Okay. And if we want to create an animation of him like kind of walking, well, what we would do is we just go to our 2D motion key editor here. And just like we kind of did in the first day webinar, we could create just like our character kind of just walking along here. Okay. So again, just maybe like frame 5, like that. Let's just take this and go in here and do it like this. And you can see it'll just kind of stretch the mesh like this, right? Boop, boop, boop. So again, all I really did was I just kind of created a simple kind of scurrying along. I don't know, I guess like I don't know, some kind of snail or something like that. So frame 5, just take these 2 bones like this and move them up like that. And then frame 10, just place it back down in the middle. And then frame 15. Have him go up the other way. There you go. Okay, and then frame 20, we can go ahead and press reset. Okay, so frame 0 and frame 20 are the same frame. And if we loop this, I'm going to press F3 to go into my timeline here. And I'm just going to go ahead and select this again using the object-related track. So everything we have selected will show up. In this case, it's the AE logo. You can see from here to here, we have this kind of scooting along, all right? And I can take my project length slider, bring it all the way down here, this little red flag thing right here, and then I can loop it and play back. This is what it's going to look like. Okay. This is my really pathetic walk that I did in 30 seconds for our After Effects character there. Okay, good enough. So then if you want him to move along, again, you can go collect clip track and left click and drag in the collect clip track, right click and just add to action menu. Again, like we did last time, let's call this walk. You can even call that a walk. And then we'll take our project length slider up and zoop, there we go. And have our character just we'll go out of the 2D motion key editor here first. Right click on the character, action menu, and walk will appear. And then we can go to motion and loop it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and select loop and loop our clip. Just like this. So there's like boop, 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 walking along like that. All right, good enough. I think for the next 10 minutes or so, I want to show you guys how to replace the sprites on a regular character to create that custom character I showed you earlier, or in the previous webinar day, day 1, the spy character from Gary Pye there. So let's go ahead and just we'll leave a little After Effects on the screen here. All right. Okay, I just right-clicked and removed object animation there. I always just do that just to kind of remove any unnecessary animation that we don't need. Okay, so let's bring in a couple more characters here. Let's bring in our general character under G3 here, under G3 Human. Everyone should have this. I'm going to bring in this Elastic Folks Male 01 S, which means kind of side facing there. Okay, so let's just bring him in like this. And this is like your standard character. Now, again, you can use a template if you want, like any one of these templates down here, human motion bones 2, side facing. This is if you don't want to utilize any of the facial features on the character. You can just go ahead and like this, use this one here. You can start from scratch. But I like to tend to use this dude as my template character, just to kind of make things easier when it comes to the naming conventions in Photoshop. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, so this guy's all good to go. Let's bring in the other custom actor here. oops, that's Explorer. There we go. Explorer, I'm going to go back to that same folder there. And under characters, spry, we have the character file here. And I'm just going to bring this character into my scene. We'll kind of deconstruct both these characters and take a look at how they differ. And I'll show you how to replace sprites. I have all the sprites saved already. And I'm going to take our base character, our default character, into Photoshop, and I'll show you some sprite replacement as well if you don't have the pipeline version. Okay. All right. So here they are, two different dudes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the torso of this character with this tuxedo of the character on the right. Now, I'm only going to do the torso for this example. If you have questions about how to do the legs, the feet, and everything like that, it's all the same process basically. So I'm just going to show you a few different body parts and how you can replace those. Okay, so I'll take my character here, and I'm just going to go into my base character. I'm going to go into composer mode. And in composer mode, let's go ahead and take our character, and we're going to replace the sprites for the body and everything else. So I'm going to select the torso here, and well, it doesn't really matter what we select actually. Let's go ahead and launch into Photoshop first. All right. Now here, it doesn't really matter. Generally, what I like to do is I like to have the scale of the body and the head quite a bit larger. But in this case, we're just going to keep it consistent since we don't really need to have, we don't really need a large scale right now. I'm just kind of showing you the basic replacement. Okay, what I'm going to do is we can just launch the head and body in one single file. We don't need to launch in two separate files in this case. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and launch that. And we're going to, first mentions as well that please be aware of this. When you do this Photoshop pipeline, it'll replace the vector elements, it'll downgrade it to an image element. Okay, if you're interested in learning more about vector versus rasterized images, just let me know in the Q&A section at the end. We will have a Q&A session, and you can I'll answer any of those questions for you there. Okay, so here's our character. And let's get rid of that disembodied arm there. Okay, so again, there's tutorials that go into a lot more detail on this, guys. And if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to provide you with those tutorial links. They are in our Learning Center. But I'm just going to briefly go over this, how to replace these body parts. And this is the process that I normally use. Not the funnest thing in the world, but it's necessary. So the top here in your Photoshop layers, you'll find RL Bone Human. We'll just get rid of that. We don't need it. Okay, we don't really need the bones right now. Just get rid of that, and you can see it gets rid of all those bone points. But those are very important, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. But now we have Talking Head. And under Talking Head, we have different stuff here. So we have the bones for the head under Talking Head. I'm just going to zoom in on our face really quick here. All these yellow crosshairs, they indicate positions of bones. Okay, so these are the bones for the eyes. This yellow one right here, this is a bone, head bone for left eye. Okay, if I make that invisible, you'll see the eye sprite underneath it. Okay, now the position of these bones is very important because that's where your sprites are going to be, based out of. The movement and stuff is going to use that as a reference point, really. Okay, so really we don't need to worry too much about those head bones since we're going to be replacing the torso only. Okay, so we'll get rid of the head bones. We don't even need the head since we're going to be replacing only the body parts. Okay, so how do we replace the body parts? Pretty easy stuff, actually. All I have to do is select the object right here. I always have auto select enabled here for layer. Okay, myself, always a very useful thing because if you just click on something, it'll automatically pop up in the layers window there. Okay, so I'm going to replace this chest, or hip rather. Okay, now generally the hip is going to be the main part of your character, so you want to replace this first. This is generally the workflow that I follow, and you want to make sure that your naming is very consistent. Very important to emphasize this. The naming of your layers needs to be consistent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this layer, this image here. I'm going to right click it and copy that name. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm in that hip layer there, and I'm going to find the image that I want to import in as my new torso. Okay, and that happens to be here under spy, CTA3 character PNGs. Nope, it's in the CTA4 ones. Okay. No, maybe it was in the 3 one. I'm just blind as a bat. Torso, there we go. It's just too white, I can't see it. Okay, there we go. So here's our torso.png. So basically this is what it is, in case you can't see it. And that doesn't really help that the background is white again. Let's bring it into Photoshop, okay? Just left click and drag it directly in. Okay, boom, there you go. Now you wanna make sure that it's click and drag it in the layer window here under hip. Okay, it needs to be under hip. There's a few things that need to happen here. The first thing is you need to resize it, okay, according to the character on the screen. Just go ahead and resize like this and reposition it to wherever you want. Okay, relative to the character underneath. Okay, I think that should be fine. You can see he has a much more cut suit there. And once you resize it to your heart's desire, just press enter. And there you go. You have this all set up and good to go. And if you want, you can resize and whatever else again. But what we're going to do is we're going to right click it, and we need to make sure that we rasterize it, okay, like that. And we're going to just go ahead and delete this first one here. Again, we have the name in our clipboard, so let's go ahead and delete that. And then let's double click on the torso and Control V and replace that name. Great. So now we have this, torso that doesn't really look too good right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just replace the arms really quickly since we're kind of running out of time here. Same process. Okay, select the left arm, and I'll go ahead and select click and drag and left arm here. Okay, it's going to be a different size again. Make sure you position it properly. Whoa, smokes. Okay, let's Control Z that. I believe that should be okay. Well, that size. Enter, and then we'll just rotate it. There we go. And again, it doesn't have to be the same size as the previous arm or the same position really, but make it according to where your character's shoulder socket is, I like to call it, okay? So again, take that naming convention and delete it, and then Control V, name, enter, and you want to make sure you rasterize it. Okay, right click on the rasterizer. And the same thing with the right arm. Okay, so you can see this process. I don't want to show you the whole thing, obviously, because it would just be repeating myself. We'll just show it a few times here. Copy that name and bring in the right arm. Arm right, doesn't really matter where. Just make sure it's under the folder, the correct folder. There we go. And generally, what you may want to do is you may want to make your scales consistent, which I didn't really pay attention to the scales numbers. But let's just go ahead and use this. There you go, and that should be okay. And press enter. Okay, and then paste that name, delete the previous one. There you go. Now, a couple things here. He has a neck that we need to bring in as well. Now, the neck is generally part of the torso, okay? So this character, the neck was deleted with the original torso. So this character happens to have a separate neck, and we can just go ahead and bring that in. If you come across this situation, here's the process. Just bring in this neck item here. Okay, you can see there's the neck. And there we go. I'm gonna make it a little bit larger. There you go. I think we'll leave it just like that. Press enter. Okay, now what I want to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and rasterize that again. I guess it would automatically rasterize, but we're going to merge. Make sure I have this naming convention in the clipboard just in case. I'm going to shift select both these layers, and let's make the neck above the torso there. Shift select both these layers, right click, and we're just going to merge the layers. Okay, merge the layers. You can see it renamed as neck. So again, Control V that in there. Okay. Now, the hands get a bit complicated. I do have about 15 minutes left here. I do want to show you a bit about the hands because that can be a really tricky area. This character also may need some additional area to his torso here. The bum, as it's so eloquently named here, we can bring that in and do the same thing as the as we did with the neck there. Just resize it. But again, we'd have to change this to a blue color. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I think we still have that saved, or still have that in the clipboard. Merge layers. Yep. We don't want this to be called bum. We want it to be called Control V, image group _ hip. Okay, and then what you'd want to do is probably take your fill tool, which is there we go, and hold Alt and click on this area, and then click on this area, and boom! Now we've changed his pants color to the correct color. All right. Darn, we should have. Let's put that below. There you go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Again, same process. Merge layers. There you go. Okay, the name's consistent now. And then same process. Alt to get your little eyedropper tool here. Click, and then click here, and there you go. Shazam! And that's the same thing you do for the hands and everything as well. Now the hands, again, you would have to replace. So the hands are a bit trickier because there's a lot more sprites. Okay, so if you go to like right hand, for example, you'll see tons of different sprites here. All right, and what you would want to do here is find all your hands in these files here. I don't want to replace all the hands right now. Just want to show you the process. You need hand sprites for all of these ones here. Okay, and what I may want to do is just take the color from this hand, for example, oops, and just paste it on here. Oops, need to make sure we have the left arm selected there, or right arm. Where's my character's right arm? There we go. And okay, don't worry about it. There you go. So then same thing for the left arm. Oop. There you go. And then maybe the neck, the torso there. Okay, it needs to be merged. Oh, there you go. And then maybe we could do something a little darker for this area. Shoop. There you go. Okay. Now our dude is looking suave and fancy. Good to go. Okay. Now this hand sprite, you can move this a little bit once you're back in Photoshop or back in Cartoon Animator. I'm just going to go ahead and file and save this, and it's going to automatically update in Cartoon Animator. All right, and then we can move the bones a little bit, and all the sprites move along with it. That's how you can replace the torso. Now he looks nice and suave. And what we do here is now go edit pose, select our hand, and move the hand, and you can see all the sprites will move along with it. That's the entire sprite library. Make sure you do it this way. If you try and do it one sprite by one sprite, you're going to have a really rough time because you're going to have to move, I don't know how many hand sprites there are, 30 or something, 24 maybe. You're going to have to move them all one by one. Okay, so make sure you edit pose and move the bones all together. Okay, and you can move these hands up here, and we're good to go. Okay, we can go out of edit pose mode and then back into stage mode. Okay, there you go. They look like twins. All right, two suave-looking brothers. Okay, so that's that. Now the face again. That tutorial or that webinar that I sent you there that was done in May, the 360 head creation tutorial, or webinar rather, that one goes into a lot more detail. And we don't have enough time here to go into detail on that. So I highly recommend checking that out to supplement your knowledge on how to create G3 360 heads. Generally, what you'll do is the same process as with the body. So I would take the character and replace all the face sprites. And it's a little bit more tricky. Again, I just did the simple one here of replacing the body parts. Head can be a bit more tricky. But I'm going to show you really quickly one process here. If you want to add accessories onto your character's head. In this case, we're going to make it look like Jim Bond here has a little injury on his face. So I'm going to select the character. We're going to take him into composer mode. Just say we skipped about half an hour of work and kind of replaced all the facial sprites and all the body sprites and everything like that. Not half an hour, maybe like 15, 20 minutes, I would say, again. But you don't want to see me going back and forth and replacing sprites. So I'm just going to show you this here. Now, generally, when you bring your character in, you're going to have to set the 360 head creator here. Okay. So if I select that and preview, you can see it's already been set up. Okay. And there's a tutorial that goes into a lot more detail on this. What I want to show you what to do here is how to add an accessory to your character's face. Okay. So let's go to the layer manager here. And under talking head, what I'm going to do is just press the plus symbol, the plus symbol down here. Okay. And that'll allow us to add an image. Okay. And I can add a flower onto his head. Again, this is focusing on his head, so not the body. I believe I saved it in images. There's an image of or maybe on the desktop, maybe in this folder. Nope. I believe it will be on the desktop. Yes, cartoon Band-Aid. Okay. Again, this is wherever you get it from. Make sure you, if it's copyrighted, make sure you credit the right artists for any copyright. Ensure that you do that. It just said to resize it there, so we just go ahead and press yes. It's going to be important as a real big bandage. Here you go. Okay, so the image size is really big. I got this from Google Image Search. Of course, the correct copyrights need to be applied. So let's go ahead and resize that back down to a reasonable size there. And we're going to just kind of place it on his chin here. Maybe he cut himself shaving. It would be much cooler to say he was in some kind of spy situation. But most likely, this type of injury comes from a rusty razor or shaving yourself the wrong way. All right, there we go. Place that over there. And that's really all there is to it. Okay, so you can see it's under talking head here. It's on a separate layer. And that's all we really need to worry about. We can preview that using the 360 head creator here. And same thing. Okay. Now what needs to be done here is you need to make sure that you move that bandage onto in each separate direction here into its specific move. What happened there? Specific location. I think I just messed up this guy's head. Bug report. Okay, so that's weird. Okay, 360 head creator, and we'll get rid of those bones. I don't want to see the bones. So center, right. We'd move that a little bit further to the right here, like that. Left, we'd move it a little bit further to the left here. Now, important to note here is that we need to actually add a mask to this. And the mask can be found in the layer manager here, this little icon there. And select mask, right? So now what's going to happen is if we preview, we have the bandage going from there to there, following along with our character's head movement, okay? Very important to take care of this. And you can go like down here. Certain there's some kind of bug there that's messing with our character's head. There we go. Place that bandage down there maybe. And then the bottom. You shouldn't be able to see it probably too much. Maybe just a little bit lower. And so on and so forth. So you have something like this. Okay. And yeah, that's a little kind of a weird situation that happened there with the head tilting back. I'm not sure what happened there, but that's the process. Okay. And then you have that bandage where it's supposed to be. And our character just seems to be really wanting to tilt his head to the left there. Okay. Anyways, that's the process for adding the accessories to your character's head. Hopefully you won't get that weird little situation where the head's going back and forth. But then you can take your character back into stage mode, and hopefully his head is on correctly. Sweet. Okay. And then let's do a quick preview. And you can see. All right. That's what we're looking for right there. Okay. Good enough. Now, for the last 5 minutes or so, let's go ahead and create a kick on our character. I'm going to load up the project here. Part 2. So again, part 3 is going to focus entirely on facial animation. We're going to do some body animation, some really, body animation as it relates to characters interacting and gesturing to each other. But generally, part 3 is going to be facial animation, and we'll kind of just do a summary of everything we learned in the last few days, and get any questions you guys might have. Okay. So again, here's the process. Moving along here. Now, I'm going to get rid of this transition since we don't really need this at this point. This radial transition here. Let's go ahead and delete it. And I'm going to remove all animation from my character. Just like this. Right-click it and select Remove Object Animation. Okay, now it's very simple, the process that I used here. There's 2 ways you can make a character go across the screen. One is by using what are called root motions. Okay, so if you go to animation here, I'm going to be using these mission ones, okay, mission moves from the content pack I mentioned yesterday. And if we go to move, there's 2 different types of movement. There is root movement and in-place movement, okay? That's not going to move your character forward. Now, anytime you see like lines behind your character like this, on the icon has lines behind it, that means it's a root motion. It's going to change the root position of your character. Now, that can mess with the transform position, and I'll show you that maybe a little bit later, maybe in the next webinar on next Monday there. But I'm just going to go ahead and click run forward here. Okay, so you may think that, hey, I applied this motion, maybe I can just loop it, right? So if I press F3 and go into my timeline here under motion, I have that run forward clip right there. If I try to loop it once, see what happens, okay? Oops, let's go to camera record mode here. And a camera, we're going to do some camera stuff in the next webinar as well. Just like this. He'll go back to the starting point, okay? That's because your character's root is actually still way back here, okay? And you're going to see how this is a little bit tricky in the future. So what I have to do is just apply it again, apply the same motion again, the same frame, basically the frame after, okay? We have it like this, and it'll recalculate that root position and continue on. And then we want to have an end, run forward end, okay? Just like this. Okay, so kind of stop in his tracks like that. Okay, so there's another way to do this. And the other way to do it is, let's bring in another character for this one. Let's bring in, let's go to our custom characters here. And let's bring in Plainclothes Jim. So you can race with Spy Jim. And I'll show you the difference with these root motions and why in some cases you may not want to use them. And right after this, we'll get to our Q&A. Looks like we'll have to save the karate kick for tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Monday, next Monday. Okay, so here is Jim and Dream Jim. And you can see with this Jim, I just changed the skin color and everything like that. Let's make him a bit bigger. There we go. Okay, now under animation, this pack also has in-place motions, okay? So there's, where is it? Nope, mission, move, there we go. So we have the run forward. Okay, this is the one with the lines behind it. Again, remember this is a root motion. There's run forward and there's run. Now this one here doesn't have lines behind it. And what this will allow us to do is this will allow us to have our character run in place, okay? So double click that. So you can see our character will just run in place. This is kind of a teaser for the next next webinar here. So I'm going to apply that. This one you can loop it. Okay, I can loop it just like that. So, and it's looped. Okay, and then we'll just have the same run end. Okay, but it'll just be all in the same place. Okay, so what I want to do here is at the first frame, I'm just going to place him equal to where Spy Jim is. And then as we move along, timeline here, where he takes his last step, which is like right here. Okay, this is his last step before he, because he'll remain in the same position right here. So right here is where we want him to be in position. Okay, so we're going to just basically click and drag and move our character forward to this position right here. Okay, now what's going to happen? We have them both running along and stopping, just like that. Okay, running along like this and stopping right there. Okay, so that's two ways you can animate your character's run. There's root motions and there's in-place motions. Now that will have an effect on our karate kick later on. In the project that you guys have, I use the root motion, and you'll see, I'm just going to load this up really quickly again. You'll see where the root remains. Okay, I'm going to just load up part 2 again here. Just reload this, and then we'll move on to the Q&A right after this. I just want to show you where the root is. It's kind of as a little preview for the next week's webinar there. And I'll get to the Q&A. So start putting your questions in the Q&A panel there. If you guys have any questions that you want to move on to. Let's close down. Well, actually, let's leave Photoshop open just in case. Okay, and let's delete the radial there, transition. Okay, now with this one, we're going to take off the camera, record, and we'll just go over here. Now, if we have our character selected, see this little green line here? This green line indicates the transform positions of our character. Now, regardless of where our character goes, this green line is staying in the same position. Okay, and that's because these are transform positions. And we'll talk about this more in the third day, but these are transform positions. And regardless of whether your character is there or not, if you're using root motions, those transform keyframe positions will be in the same place. They are not affected by root motions, root animations of your character. Okay, and I'll explain that more. Let's go on to the Q&A section right now, I think, because that's a little bit more than a few minutes of explaining. And let's go and answer any questions you have. So feel free to put anything in the Q&A section there, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. All right, Kenneth says hello. Hello, Kenneth. I guess that was before the webinar actually started. Okay, so Alana asks, how do you create a character that seamlessly transitions from front, side, and 3/4 views with the newly updated 3D characters in Cartoon Animator 4? Well, to be honest, the G2 characters wasn't really seamless. It was still kind of a jerky, sudden transition from one angle to the other. With the 3D characters, or the 360 head characters, if you want to transition the body from one point to another, you can do that. And the way you would do it is you would just kind of make the previous body invisible, the previous character invisible, and the current character visible. Okay, so I'll kind of show you, how I would do it really quickly with two characters we have embedded. So let's just take our template here and let's do Elizabeth from front to side. Again, this is a workaround, and we're still working on different ways to, transition the body directly from one angle to the next. So let's place these characters kind of in relatively the same position there. Okay. And I want to apply, for our front-facing character, let's just apply a pose really quickly. It doesn't really matter what pose. Let's do front. Let's use front-facing. Pose stand. Okay. And then our side-facing character in the scene manager, we'll just double-click and apply the pose stand to her. Okay, so I mean, what you would do if you wanted to, go from front-facing to 45 degrees, what I would do is right now, I would only have my. Oh goodness, what did I do there? All right, let's just remove object animation for all these frames here for both characters. And there we go, that should work. Okay, sorry about that. So what I would do here is I would take my character like this and say we want her to move from front-facing to side-facing. Well, side-facing, I would make it invisible right now. So I'll select the side-facing character here and make her invisible. And then we'll go to like, let's say frame 10. And then I would make the side-facing character visible and my front-facing character invisible. Okay, so if we go through our timeline, it just kind of looks like she's we play back, going from that position to that position. Okay, so it's kind of a similar way that you would transition in with G2 characters. And of course, if you add like some facial movement to that, it makes it look a bit more natural. So you can just go ahead and record like, okay, so something like this. We'd have her that again, and it's you're not going to be able to get past that jerkiness, unfortunately. But that's the way that you would kind of do the situation, have the situation, make one character visible and the other character invisible. Okay. Unfortunately, that's the limitation at this time. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next question there. That's the way I would do it there, Alana, to answer your question. Okay, so what's the best, Rosemary asks, what's the best way to have a character play the guitar? I have an animated guitar from the Occupations pack. There are guitar moves, but I can't get them to look right. To have your character play the guitar, there's a couple of ways you can do that. I kind of showed both ways throughout this tutorial here, or this webinar. A guitar, that one, yeah, you might even want to just use a really hand sprite for that. Ideally what I would do for a guitar is have a hand sprite that's kind of like on the neck of the guitar, and then have your other hand just do the natural plucking of the. Actually, no, you know what? Because your hand would need to be in front of the strings. The left hand would need to be in front of the strings, or whichever hand you are, it needs to be in front of the guitar. So you would have to use the fake arm trick, I guess. In this case, the fake arm trick would be the best. And one way you can do this as well, another fake arm trick you can use, is if you have your actors, you go into actors here, and G3 360, go to the spine. Okay, so the spine can act as an arm too. All right, if we took this sunflower here and brought this in, because the reason I'm using the 360 spine is because we have animations that are particularly made for that one. So G3 360 G3 spine here, you can apply like something like gosh, this one here maybe. No, that wouldn't work. I think ideally what you need to do is probably just do the freebone actor thing I showed you before. I'm just kind of spitballing here, and yeah, I think that would be it. That would be it. Maybe wave 2 would fit. Let's just try this really quickly here. Okay, I mean you could replace that sprite with the arm sprite, and have the character's arm kind of do that, kind of use these templates. But generally, you can just do a really quick and simple custom animation like I did with that character, with the After Effects character just kind of scooting along there. So again, what you would do is just replace the sprites here with those sprites on the hand there. Just replace, and there you go. And zoop. You go. I mean, this is if you want to have your character, use this spine bone structure instead of the original one. Take the face and just empty it, and yeah, everything should be empty. There we go. So what you could do here is you would take this back into compose or into stage mode there, and just get rid of that stupid face. It's not a stupid face. It's a good face. There you go. In the back here, and then you could apply any of these animations to your arm. So you could have him like stroking a guitar like this, using one of these template motions. Okay, that would be ideal. Like this one here, the wind's strong. Just motion, and basically you can just loop that like this. Sorry if I'm kind of going too fast for you guys there, but Just kind of showing the process. So you would have this, say for example, this girl had a disembodied arm that looked kind of like different from the rest of her body. Just place it up here, scale it down. There you go. She has a third arm, and this arm knows how to play guitar. So it'd be like this. Okay. It's just a weird kind of solution that I came up with. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's one way you can do it. Anyways, next question here. Sorry about that, Rosemary. But yeah, you'd probably use that same process I showed you earlier. Okay. Someone anonymous mentions here, is it just for PlayStation or not PlayStation? Photoshop. Is this for Photoshop only, or can the arm be done in GIMP? GIMP is fine. Any software that supports PSD you can use. Okay, so GIMP is a free software for all of you who are not aware. GIMP, G-I-M-P, highly recommend it. It's getting a lot better than it did when it first started out. I haven't used it in recent years, but definitely if you're on a budget and you don't want to give more money to Adobe, then check out GIMP. Yeah, so just to reinforce here, this is being recorded for your, you can review on your own time, and we'll send you out a link for the recording. Okay, guys? Okay, so Toshitaro mentions here how to turn from front to side 2, no shortcut. No, right now, the only way you can do that is by the visible invisible little trick there that I showed you, okay? So that's just kind of a little bit of a workaround that we have right now. And we are working on, of course, improving that body, 3D body sort of stuff. It's still in the works right now, okay? Okay, so Kenneth mentions, what about Animate Character Creator character designs? Animate CC vector character design and body creation. Well, that'll be a different software. I mean, you can import that stuff into character or cartoon animator as well, for sure. Again, but you'd have to do it through that process. I want to show you quickly the process, guys. If you don't have Photoshop, or if you don't have have the pipeline version of Cartoon Animator, you can also do the same thing without the pipeline version. Okay, so you don't really need to have the pipeline version. Just go into composer mode. It takes a little bit longer, maybe. In composer mode, you can just modify the sprites. Okay, so sprite editor, and we can replace her arm with something weird. Give her a band, or let's give her like this arm here. Okay, so this is the way you would do it in without the pipeline version. So you don't need to export into Photoshop. This is the way you would do it with this character here. Okay, so now if I had a motion on this character, if I go back into stage mode, she has 2 freakishly large arms. Let's go ahead and throw an animation there really quick, maybe a perform animation. Oh, need to have her selected first.
I really don't want to.
Oh, okay, oops. I made the invisibility thing here. If you want to determine when your character is invisible and when it's not, let's make the other character disappear there. Go in here and just go to visible, your visible track. You can see it goes from here to here. She's visible and then disappears. Okay, but I need to, of course, make that longer. So
I really don't want to.
Okay, and then she's invisible after this point here. Okay. It's all in the visible track of your character's timeline. Okay, Kenneth, if you want any more detailed answers about the vector character design, maybe just email me. You can email me separately. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's Kai at reallusion.com. I'll throw that in the chat window for anyone who wants to have a little chat. Chat. Oh, at reallusion.com. Boom. There we go. Okay. Send her over. Okay, so Ezekiel asks, Yeah, animate CC inside Cartoon Animator 4. I want to mention to you guys, if you do have any wishful features that you would like to have in Cartoon Animator, please put those in the forums. We have a wishful features part in the area of the forums. If you go to like forum.reallusion.com, we have tons of people. By the way, if you need to any questions answered here as well, anything you're having trouble with, there's tons of users on here that are have lots of free time and have maybe they're all retired or something, or have a lot of time to just kind of help other people. But we have a really generous and really cool community of users here. Go down to Cartoon Animator here and go to wishful features. So our development team looks at these wishful features quite often. If you have any things that you'd like to add onto Cartoon Animator 4, again, we always have this section here to give direct feedback to our development team. And I'll throw this in the chat window as well. Okay, because there's a few people who have mentioned CC, Animate CC as well. Okay. Graham asks, is it possible to create characters and animatable props using Adobe Elements instead? I don't use Adobe Elements. To be honest, I don't think I've ever used it. The only thing I can say is that as long as it supports PSD, then you're fine. Animatable props, I mean, you can technically create an animatable prop with, Microsoft Paint. Just paint yourself a prop and then throw it in there, import it as a prop. Really no restriction to the programs you can use for animated props. But I've never really used Elements, Adobe Elements, so I can't really answer that question directly for you there. Sorry. Sorry about that, Graham. Yeah, I guess when you use Photoshop, you don't really have a lot of desire to use elements there. All right. Yeah, but you can. I mean, you can create animatable props just fine. Like if I did, like Microsoft Paint, do they even still have it? Oh, wow, they still do that. Okay, haven't used this for ages. If I create like a square. And filled it with pink. I don't know. This is going to be my weird pop. I don't even know how to use this program. Okay. And then you just go ahead and save that out. Save it as a PNG. Fine, that works. And, let's save it to our desktop. And then you import it in, Untitled. Is that what I called it? Into, there you go, import as a prop. There you go. All right, there's my prop. I can add a bone structure to that. I can do whatever. I can animate it, move it around, and so on and so forth. Really no limit on what you can do. We can even use an elastic motion on here. Entrance. There this one is. There you go. There's our animated prop entering the scene with an elastic motion. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Let's go on to the next question. Hopefully that answered your question there, Graham. A little bit overboard probably on that. Linda asks, what happens when you don't rasterize your image when editing in Photoshop? Generally, it'll ask you to rasterize, I think, before you even go any further. So you don't have to manually do it, I think, most of the time. I think it'll mention that you need to rasterize before you even save. But, you have to have them rasterized anyways. And if you don't, they won't show up. Okay, it'll be looking for an image that's not a layer that's not compatible. All right. Judy asks, if I have Cartoon Animator 4 pipeline, can I import motions from iClone? Yeah, you definitely can, but they're only applied to G2 characters. So please be aware of that, everyone. When you import in your iClone motions, they can only be applied to G2 characters. Okay, and those are the legacy characters from Crazy Talk Animator 3. The current characters, they cannot use the iClone motions, although maybe in the future, we're still working on all this stuff. We're only on the 4th version of this software, so there's still lots of improvements to come in the near future. Okay, Craig asks, can you use pre-recorded video for facial animation as opposed to live? I want to do voiceovers and record faces at the same time. Okay, so yeah, using pre-recorded video, I know you can do it with iClone. I don't think I've tried it with, or rather with Faceware for iClone. You can use image sequences, not pre-recorded video, but you can use image sequences. Where are we here? 3D face tracker. I'm not sure if there's an option. Oh, there's me. Hey, look at my hair. I didn't really expect to be on screen right now, but yeah, no, it doesn't look like there's any option to load up image. Let's get my ugly mug off the screen there. Hey. All right. It's like when you open your camera phone on selfie mode, and it's like you get that double chin looking from below. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think we have that, unfortunately, right now, Craig, for Cartoon Animator, but it is available for Faceware Live for iClone. Okay. PM, thanks for making the webinars interesting. Thanks for joining. Hopefully they're interesting. I try to make it as interesting as possible when it comes to character customization. But I think the most interesting thing is really just kind of experimenting on your own and kind of having a script in mind and creating that script. Because I can go for, oh gosh, hours and hours and hours without even standing up if I have an interesting like topic or scene that I want to create. I just won't stand up until I even get that done. I know it's probably not healthy, but anyways, yeah, thanks for attending, PM. Okay, so Suzanne has a couple of questions. How to release the gray dots attached to the characters and props without removing the entire animation? Not sure what the gray dots you're talking about are. So maybe you can clarify that, Suzanne. Gray dots on your character. I think maybe you were thinking about those like these gray dots right here. And if that's the case, these do not show up in the final render, so don't worry about that. Okay. The purpose is you can move them. They're just on screen, so you can move them without going into the timeline. Okay, so these gray dots, they will not show up in your final render, so no need to worry about that. Okay, so the next question is about a background image being long and panable. Yeah, so make sure when you, I know it's kind of silly, but when you import an image as a background, it'll only stay stationary. I think I talked about this briefly in the last webinar there, like these JPEG previews. So if I was to, click and drag this cave into here and I just import it as a background, it'll just be in this little space. If I went to record mode here, it'll always stay in that little space. Okay. I've never really used, I mean, you can use it in combination with props to kind of create some sort of parallax effect. But again, it's very limited because you're limited just to the camera area, okay? And regardless of how far you zoom out, it's always going to remain within that little recording boundary area there. Yeah, I generally don't use that, just so you're aware. I think hopefully that answers the question there. Yeah, you can't make it widescreen because it's only stuck in that little area there. Stan asks, what's a good package for G3 facial animation? Well, we do have we have a couple of them. I can't really say. I don't want to go browsing through the content store right now. But G3 facial animation, the College Heroes pack, I think, has some facial animation in it. Yeah, I mean, the best way is just search for it. Cartoon Animator, and you can go to motion here, and there you go, Campus Hero bundles. There's some talking ones right here. The social buddy one has some facial animations as well. Yeah, let's search for all the animations here. This one here, social and emoticons. That one I think is body animation, but yeah, best way to search for it. I think the social the social one with the college one rather, not social buddies. The campus hero bundle has some good facial animation. So yeah, I won't spend too much time wandering through the content store though. Okay, so Suzanne Dietz asks, is there a way to move an entire folder from one character to another? For example, one character's entire lip folder taken over to another character, or the eyes and noses. Yeah, you can do that. I think when you're talking about customizing your character in Photoshop, that's really, yeah, all you need to do is make sure the naming conventions are the same. Okay, so you would basically delete the folder that you had there previously and make sure all the names are the same and replace the folder. Okay, because when you bring the Photoshop, the PSD into Cartoon Animator, it will look for the naming conventions specifically. Okay, but yeah, you can replace the entire folder as well, and that's probably highly recommended to do, especially for hands, because you don't want to be importing the hand sprites one by one. I mean, if you have time, you can do it. If you're bored, go ahead. It's you recommended not. Iram asks, when I import my character, the arm always stays at the back. How can I fix this? That would be something I would need to see, Iram. I would need to see that myself. So maybe you can send me over a screen capture or a video recording of what's happening there. It really depends on the character, but generally you can change your character's layers as well. If I just have my character selected here, my three-armed freak here, you can use the layer manager to adjust layers on your character, and that can be found in composer mode there. Okay, so composer mode, don't worry about that stuff. Take your arm. You can bring the arm in the layer manager here, bring it down below everything else by clicking and dragging if you want. Just like this. You see that red line will appear. You can make our left arm layer below everything else. All right, so make it below the body instead of above it. All right, that's one way you can do it. Obviously, you would want the opposite way, so you would take the arm from behind and move it to the front. Okay, move that arm out of the way. So now you can see she has this one arm behind and one arm in front. And if it wasn't for the different color, you wouldn't be able to tell. That's kind of the secret of having these characters with no discernible strong borders on areas like where the shoulder rotation takes place. So it enables us to have the shoulders in front of the chest, which generally wouldn't be anatomically correct. But yeah, just quick overview of the layer editor there. Yeah, so Stan mentioned as well, good package for G3 facial animation. Yeah, I think that we are going to come up with some more stuff in the future. Again, we are always creating new packs and launching them in the content store. I'd encourage a lot of you guys as well, if you're interested in making some extra money on the side, you can upload your own facial animations and sell them in the content store. You don't need to wait around for us to do it. If you have some passion about it, I mean, we do have the facial motion capture now. You can create some facial motion capture with your character, Cartoon Animator character. You can save that motion and you can upload and sell it on the content store as well. Okay, Linda asks, are the questions and answers included in the replay? Absolutely, they are certainly included in the end replay. Any questions I'm answering here will be in the video that we will email out to you guys. And also make sure, again, you fill out the survey as well. The survey helps us determine what kind of topics and what kind of things we can do better in the future. Any topics you want to learn more about. And as a reward for filling out that survey, again, in case you weren't here for day one, we provide you with a 10% discount coupon for the content store. So pretty wild. You can get that if you provide the survey for us. Okay, Enjoy asks, I can do everything with Affinity Designer, such as making props like all this. Can I also make it in Photoshop? Yeah, Affinity Designer quickly becoming more widely adopted these days. I can recommend Affinity Designer. I've used it in the past as well. A very decent program indeed. It can do all the stuff that you can that Photoshop can do basically, with a few limitations obviously. But yeah, Affinity Designer, I recommend that for you guys as a Photoshop replacement. No worries, a little bit cheaper as well. Yeah, so Photoshop Elements is just, I guess, the free version of Photoshop. Someone mentioned here, Craig. I have not seen a movie called Dust Devil, Alana. I thought that was a vacuum. But apparently the background scene here with this kind of looks like a scene from the movie Dust Devil. So that's pretty cool, I guess. It seems to be a lot of dust, although it's kind of distorted because we had to fit it into the background area there. Yeah, maybe I'll check that out. Dust Devil, eh? As long as it's not a vacuum advertisement, I think I'm okay. I've watched a ton of movies. Okay, so Enjoy also asks, what do you think of the Cartoon Animator 4 pipeline with Blender? Can I animate props with Blender for cartoons? Well, Blender is generally a 3D program. So, Cartoon Animator 4, maybe not the best program to use with it. Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome if you want have Paper Mario type effects. Yeah, go for it with Blender. You can create a 2D image and have it attached to a 3D bone structure. Okay. Someone with a name is Ty, I think. I can't read that, unfortunately. Sorry. When I switch image in the part of the character, it loses connection with the bone. Okay, so when you're switching the image, it loses the connection with the bone. That should not happen. As long as you have that bone selected, you should be able to switch any of the sprites on that bone, no problem. So maybe you can email me with a specific situation, and I can try and do some troubleshooting for you there, and answer any questions you might have at that point. Since I don't want to kind of try and struggle to understand the situation any more than I'm already struggled here. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Sweet. All right, we're a little bit shorter than yesterday, so we can all go home early. If you're already home like me, take a nap early. But that's about it. Yeah. So everyone, thanks so much for attending. And again, for more animation-focused webinar, make sure you visit are with us here on next Monday, where we're going to be doing the facial animation, character interaction, and all that fun stuff. And again, fill out the survey, please. The content we'll be providing you with that content store discount. What else? Yeah, we're sending out the recording, and yeah, make sure that you are able to come by. I know there's people from all over the world, it seems, here. I'm really surprised you guys are awake at whatever time in the morning it is in Australia, or India, for example. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to attend the webinar. And your feedback is always highly valued. So feel free to send us that survey. All right, so I guess I'll say adios and good afternoon to all of you guys. And I hope to see you again next Monday. All right, take care.